Hi, my name is Grant Shipman. I am the founder of Livingsmith and part of the Livingsmith teaching team. Livingsmith teaches the gold standard on co-living property management and investing. Today's topic is the top 5 FAQs on co-living. Let's dive right into it because you want to learn about co-living. It is making people massive money, not because of any other reason besides it is serving society in massive ways. So let's get into the questions. Number one FAQ: how do you find renters who will get along? I have great news for you. How you find renters that get along is to stop asking that question. What you want to do, what your goal is to do, is to have a house of renters. We call this a household, right? So if it's traditional or non-traditional, doesn't matter. A house of renters that is peaceful, that's enjoyable, that's quiet, that's clean. That's everything that you would want a quality household to be, that gets along. So how do you find that? Well, you don't need to find special renters. You don't need to, do what Ollie did and, pay $30,000 to have software built that matches people. And that didn't work. That's why they went out of business, right? What all you need to do is create a healthy household. We have the complete Livingsmith household system. It's a 40-point household system, just things about how the fridge works, how the kitchen works, how parking works, how the storage shelves work, how chore rotation works, right? In any household, there's two things in household. One is the who of household, who is living together. The second is the how of household. So when we ask, how do you find renters who get along? You're talking about the who of household. And you're actually focusing on the wrong thing, because if you focus on the how of household, if you set up a healthy way that household operates, right? And you have a healthy system, the how of household, then anybody who's reasonable and responsible, any human, can move in and they can thrive, right? Below average renters become average renters become above average, and above average renters become your hugest fans and they never want to leave, right? So this takes a home from simply a rental property to a cherished home that renters never want to leave, right? So how do you find renters who will get along? Quite simply stop worrying about it and simply install a complete household system. So it has a healthy how of household, and then the who that comes in, they're going to do great. The second top frequently asked question is, where can I do this legally? I have great news for you again. Basically everywhere, but not absolutely everywhere. But in any market, you're going to find zoning that works wonderful for this. It is an important question to ask. Just like whenever you do investing, you want to do your due diligence, right? So you're going to simply Google and find the number for your local code enforcer and just say, hey, I'm planning to get a house, a neighborhood house, and I'm going to rent it out by the room on long-term lease to, the working residents in the area. What is the rule on the max number of unrelated adults that can live in a house? And they will tell you, and then you can ask, is there any zoning where that might be higher, right? So you're going to find out. So where can you do this locally? Pretty much anywhere, but you do want to check, and you can't do it everywhere, right? So pretty much anywhere, but not everywhere. So there's also really great news in this is whole states are banning any restrictions on co-living, right? So Washington, Oregon, New York, California, Colorado, effective July 1st, 2024, bans any restrictions on co-living. So where can you do this in Colorado? Absolutely everywhere, except maybe HOAs, right? So check on the HOAs. So where can you do this legally? Pretty much anywhere, but not everywhere. Number 3 top frequently asked question is, does the house need to be near a college or a hospital or public transportation? So the belief behind this question is that this is going to be primarily or significantly for students, right? Students are always going to live in this house. So at least a quarter, if not a half or more, are going to be students or are going to be traveling nurses or therapists, some kind of traveling medical professional. That's why you might be near a hospital, or they're not going to have vehicles, right? Because they're this kind of demographic. Maybe they don't have money. Maybe they've lost their license, all of this stuff. So it needs to be near public transportation. So just to be clear, co-living does not need to be near any of these things. Why? Because co-living is for the mainstream. It is a long-term rental strategy. So people are staying for multiple years, right? So 12-month leases, 36-month leases. You can have a month-to-month renewing lease, but people are going to stay there a long time. So you don't need to be near a college. You don't need to be near a hospital or public transportation. Just think a normal house in a normal neighborhood and you've got a winner. Just make sure that that house fits what it's going to be used for, right? What does that mean? So there's a right bedroom to bathroom ratio, probably on a corner lot. So there's plenty of parking, but just things like that. But it doesn't need to be near anything in particular. These are for normal people living normal lives, right? So the number four top frequently asked question is co-living just rent by the room rebranded? This is a great question, and it touches a little bit on the number three FAQ. Is co-living, some people, well, that's how I should put it, right? Is co-living just rent by the room rebranded? I should say it depends on who you ask. But the other way I would answer it is 1,000% no. Rent by the room, student housing, sobriety housing, sober living housing, halfway housing, housing for the poor called houses or boarding houses. These are all wonderful and essential housing options in cities. This is so important, but co-living is not those things. Those things have been around for a long time. They're transitional housing. They're fantastic and they still exist and they're still needed. You can invest in those. They do take extra work and management. Co-living is something that's new. It came on the rise around 2003, really picked up strength around 2011, has been going stronger and stronger since. Co-living is an altogether new trend where mainstream long-term renters are opting to live with others, not because they have to, right? But because they want to. So that's what co-living is. And that separates it from what typically people think of when they say rent by the room. Rent by the room is only in place because somebody is in transition, somebody can't afford to do otherwise, etc. Co-living is for people who could probably buy their own house, right? They could possibly get married and have kids and do all of that. They could do all of these things. This is not a have to. This is a chosen. They want to live with others and they would love to live in a nice neighborhood house. And they are your coworkers, right? They're in your churches and your temples. And so co-living is this brand new, fantastic thing for the mainstream people that you've been around your whole life and maybe you're a part of. I actually lived in co-living houses for a long time, even after I had financial freedom and all of that stuff. I even lived in the houses I owned. I just didn't tell people that I owned them. I was like a little bit undercover because I didn't want them to feel ill at ease because, they had to tiptoe around because it was the owner. No, it was fantastic, right? So the top frequently asked question number 5 is why doesn't typical property management work? This question has been asked otherwise. Otherwise is why is this not working for me? Those are property managers who got into co-living and they couldn't make it work. Why is blah, blah, blah not working for management? So the short and simple answer is because every single other type of property management is for one lease on one property. Let me define that a little bit so I'm not confusing. Is if, as far as the options out there, there's short-term rentals, right? 30 days or less. It's like Airbnb, one lease on one property. There is midterm rentals. So, it's 31 days to, maybe it's 6 or 9 months long, something like that, midterm rentals. Then there's long-term rentals. And that's usually going to be 12-month and longer leases. So 12-month leases and longer. So these standard rental strategies have one lease on one property. That lease might just be short term. It might be long term, or it might be in between midterm. Co-living is different. Co-living has multiple leases on one property. So where the other rental strategies You are just looking at how to manage a lease, and the people who are on that lease or on that agreement, they are managing themselves. Co-living now is when you have multiple leases on the same shared property. So what happens is you are now managing a household of leaseholders, right? So a household of individuals. So we call our property management, our co-living property management. It is unique. A special type of property management is needed unless you want to work your guts out, right? If you use the wrong property management system, say you're using long-term a property management system like a traditional property manager, and they're trying to manage Airbnb guests, right? It doesn't fit. So can you make it work? Sure, but it's exhausting and you're not going to do it for long, right? So for co-living property management, it works fantastic. It doesn't take extra work. It's just different work. In co-living property management, we call ours household property management. Why? Because we are managing a household of leases. So why doesn't typical property management work? Because typical property management is usually thought of as one lease on one property, where this is managing multiple leaseholders, one property. So find co-living property management, do that. So we teach it. It's called household property management, or sometimes we just say co-living property management. It includes a household setup with the Livingsmith complete 40-point household system. It's wonderful. It doesn't take too long to install. And then the house members, the people who are renters for you, take that system and they pretty much run the house themselves. So if you don't have that type of property management, then the renters cannot run the house themselves, and you are going to be up to your shoulders in hard work and headaches. So those are the top 5 FAQs on co-living. I hope that this added value to your financial freedom journey. We have tons of free and powerful resources. There's this podcast. We have books. We have free trainings. We have paid programs. We had all kinds of things. Anyway, just to say, this is Grant. I'm the co-living guy. Go live your co-living daydreams.